In this episode, I get a chance to connect and speak with my friend Nick Dunning, who is an actor and also a phenomenal entrepreneur. Now, Nick has been in some pretty cool movies with people like Kevin Costner, other high names, Tom Berenger, one of my favorite actors growing up as a kid in the movie Major League. And Nick and I have a deep discussion about acting and the synergy in entrepreneurship. Now, it's not from a standpoint of acting, right? Because as entrepreneurs, there is people out there that are acting and portraying themselves in a certain way that are kind of wearing a mask. They're not really letting people in. But when you're fully acting, as Nick describes and explains to us, you're connecting with the present moment. You are channeling something higher or different than what you have right now. So Nick and I go deep down some rabbit holes in this conversation, and I love how the work that he's doing with his actors and the work that I'm doing with my heart-centered selling students. And yes, Nick is actually a heart-centered selling mastery student as well. And he's also in my coaching intensive. And the alignment between these two worlds, it's inspiring, it's exciting. And in this conversation, you're going to walk away with more of an understanding of how to be present in your life and in your work as well. So stay tuned. I'm Adam Kiddoo, and it's time to master the art of real heart alignment, where you live, work, and play from your personal power as energy aligns, your gifts flow, and life simply works. These life-changing conversations are designed to help you to see what you're not seeing, hear what you're not hearing, and to be who you're not being, as the world needs more heart-centered leaders now more than ever. Are you ready to say no to living a half-hearted life and say yes instead to boldly living from a place of real heart alignment? Welcome to the Adam Kiddoo podcast. All right, you guys, I'm excited to bring you actually one of my heart-centered selling mastery students, a friend of mine, Nick Dunning. Now, Nick Dunning is an actor, but he's also a phenomenal entrepreneur. I've got the chance to work with Nick over the last 6 months or so, and just to see the drive that this guy has, the passion, the excitement to help others to be the absolute best versions of themselves, it goes unrivaled. It's really cool for me to see and to bring Nick on the show. Now, Nick has worked on some pretty cool films. He's worked with some big names in the industry, like Mr. Kevin Costner, Bill Paxton, Tom Berenger, which is one of my favorites from my favorite movie of all time, Major League, and a lot of big names. And I'll let Nick tell us a little bit about that in a moment. But I wanted to bring Nick on. He just has such a wide scope of knowledge. He has a huge heart. He has different training that I'm a fan of, like NLP training. And so I'll let him do a service of giving himself an introduction, just to talk a little bit about, in this episode, the difference between acting and now as an entrepreneur showing up as his authentic self. Yes, still being engaging. Yes, still being exciting. Yes, still being able to captivate an audience and things of that nature, but no longer from somebody else that he's not, as he would with an actor. So I wanted to have some fun here because I know a lot of people get into imposter syndrome and they feel inauthentic and they feel out of alignment. So we're going to break that down and more in this conversation. So Nick, kick us off, man.
Well, I was thinking, who's he talking about? Who's this
That's not me. Wait. Yeah. So fill us in on some of the stuff you've worked on over the years, and also just what's your story and how you got into acting. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. I thank you so much for having me, by the way. It's a great thrill for me to be here. It really is. And I'm kind of like, I'll quite often ask this question: how do you get into it? How did it all start? And I had no real idea. I mean, I think when I look back, I started when I was about 5. My dad, who was a teacher, went to France, and we started teaching over there. And I played the Prince of the Fairies in Thumbelina, as most people do, and that's how I got into it. And that's my first memory. Mm-hmm. Then I came back, and essentially it was school teachers who kind of like fired you up, and there's always one who you kind of connect with, and I was fortunate enough to have a couple of those. And so eventually, I mean, I moved school. I had a bit of a difficult time with exams and so on. It wasn't really my thing. And I didn't really go, and show up and do that kind of thing. So I left school when I was about 16, and I went to work in a factory. And that was a really sort of shocking place, and kind of just spurred me. I suddenly thought, okay, this is what could happen. I could end up here. It was a kind of like this is what could be my life. And
Wow.
yeah, no, really. I mean,
Yeah, I've had
then,
similar experiences too. I mean, I
yeah,
roofed houses and did odds and end
yeah.
jobs, and I'm like, I don't want to do this the rest of the day. The rest of my
Absolutely.
life, it's
I
hot.
was, yeah, petrol pump
Great
attendant. I did all
contrast.
sorts of, yeah. And at one point it did start to look as if that was actually the possibility. Years later, then my dad and, well, the whole family moved about 100 miles up. I was, living in London at the time, moved up to a place called Leicester, which is about 100 miles north. And I got involved with this crazy teacher, the couple of crazy teachers who really got me hooked on language,
Mm.
and just the sounds of language and plays. And we did Frankenstein. We did, we actually developed a play with the whole school about a local highwayman, and this became one of those things where we started to look into the stories that were around in the area, so that the language and the stories became real. Then we went off to Canterbury, in England, and this teacher, Martin, said, "Come on, let's all dress up." So we all dressed up as all the pilgrims from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and they were really rude, bawdy tales from Middle England in the 1200s and something, and they were so exciting. But dressing up and walking the walk, I mean, it literally is what we're talking about. It was literally feeling like being the character. And that's what got me going. And I got back so excited from that. And another teacher came up to me and said, "Listen, you're really into this stuff. You should go and audition for a drama school." And I said, "What's a drama school?" It's true. I had absolutely no idea. So I went home and I said to my dad, "Dad, I've got a big problem here. I don't know what I'm going to do. What's going to happen?" And he said, "Well, the only drama school I know is called RADA, which is the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. And so we better apply for that." So I said, "Oh, okay." So we did, and I got in. I mean, that was like the most extraordinary thing.
Wow. And real quick, I want to note on that. It's
Yeah.
very interesting to me, people's backstories, because just these little twists of fate, these little words that, somebody had said, or, I'm sure other people have had, similar advice presented to them, but they didn't follow up on it. Right. And it's just like, well, I need to look into this. Like, they're saying this thing, let's look into this. And that basically paved your whole trajectory of your
Yeah.
career up to this date, that point in time. That's beautiful.
Absolutely. And it was literally that moment when I was saying to my dad, "I have to do 2 audition speeches. I don't know what is an audition speech. I don't know what that is." I had to do a classical speech and then a modern speech. So for classical, I didn't even know, I'd never really read Shakespeare, which we had to do, Shakespeare. And so I had an old copy of Richard II being done by the Royal Shakespeare Company that my parents had. It wasn't mine, with Richard Pascoe playing Richard II. And I just listened to it and copied it. Sort of what I did. I kind of, modeling, I suppose you'd call
Yep.
it,
Mm-hmm.
nowadays. And then the other one was, my dad said, because I had no idea, he said, "Well, look, there's a play called Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Why don't you try that?" And I looked at this speech, and it is the most incomprehensible speech ever written. And somehow I connected to it. It made sense.
Mm.
And I mean, I even to this day, I remember the opening sentence goes something like, given what is it? Given the works of Punch and Watman, according to the personal God, quack, 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 quack. I mean, it's complete, it's like nonsense. But it is, and I still remember it, and it's extraordinary. It has this kind of power to it. And I remember when I got in, I couldn't believe it. And then cut to years later, the Hugh Crutwell, who was the kind of the head of the drama school at the time, said to me, "Yes, he used to speak like this. Yes, it's terrific, Nick. It's wonderful. You've had a great time being here. It's terrific. And I remember your audition. Yes, the Lucky. It was terrific. I remember that. Absolutely lovely. It was so good, so good. But the Richard II, Yes, absolutely dire. So, and actually, I think there was a bit of truth in that, that my authenticity came through in this rather strange character.
Wow, and real quick there too,
Yeah,
that's something I love talking about is
yeah,
energy, right? There
yeah,
was some
yeah,
energy, there was some connect there. You know, the
yeah.
analytical brain probably was like, well, this is kind of a messy written thing, and it's kind of awkward or whatever. But there was some part of you that was just like, no, this is it. This is
Totally,
for me. And we
totally.
can all look for that. And there's even moments to where,
Yeah,
you know, if I'm listening for like a audio music to put with a video or anything like that, I'll have a visceral feeling. I've had to train myself to be open to these feelings, these senses, and we
yeah.
all have that gift. But if we're not aware to it, if we're always, you know, considering what other people are thinking, what we should be doing, what society's telling us to do, we're going to miss that 100
Yeah,
times out of 100. So,
100%, 100%. And for me, it's kind of almost a bit because my training is all in opening up all the senses. That's what
wow.
we do. That's what actors do all the
Yeah.
time. So
Wow.
my journey in terms of trying to become trying to become an entrepreneur is kind of the flip side of that. I've had to develop the other side of things. It's much more the sort of the logical, sequential stuff, the organizing and, filing and that kind of stuff that is just so anti me.
Yeah.
But you can't do everything on just pure instinct.
Mm-hmm.
You need to balance the two, don't you, at
Mm.
certain times, so I
Yeah.
think it's a fascinating journey. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and tell us a little bit about that. You know, Nick and I were talking a little bit before we hopped on and clicked the record button here,
Yeah.
and it sounded like you had this moment in time. I believe it sounded like as an entrepreneur to where you were kind of carrying over your acting a little
Yeah.
bit, and you felt that something was a little bit disconnected. Can you talk into that a little bit?
Yeah, well, basically I've been working quite a long time from drama school. I'd done a few TV shows and, just kind of like very, very easy early jobs. And then I got a great job up in a place called York Theatre Royal to play Algernon in The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. And it was a fantastic part. And I loved it. It was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen. And I loved the rehearsals for it and everything. And I was working with a great old actress who'd been with Laurence Olivier, and I mean, it was like I was stepping into something that was extraordinary. And then before the press night, and the press night, I'm sure you know, is when the reviewers and the critics come in. Before that happened, I started to get this real panic. And I got scared, and I developed what I felt was some kind of stage fright. And I was really, I'd never experienced it. I suppose I was, late 20s, 30s, and you think that's the time when you can get over this stuff. But no, I couldn't. No, I left the building. I had to just disappear. And I thought, I can't. I ran home. I went back to the flat that I was staying in, shut the door, drew the curtains, turned the lights off, and I just thought, right, that's it. I'm not going. I'm just not going to do the
Wow.
play. I'm not going to do the show. And I was so frightened because I could feel it in my whole body. And it was just terrifying. The thought of going out onto the stage that night, I just couldn't do it. And it's a big theater and all of that. There's a big part, and and I just thought, no. Sometime later, what happened was the door rang because someone from the theatre had obviously figured out, where is he? He's not here. Where is this guy? I think we're going to need this guy. He needs to come. Where is he? So somebody was obviously rushing around, checking it all out. They came running around, and a woman called Annie Castledine, who was a beautiful, beautiful director, she came and knocked on the door and found me and gradually coaxed me back. And literally breathed life into what it was that I was. And I was able to manage to go. I was shaking like a leaf, but I went back on that night, and I kind of got through it. And then I thought, days later, still shaking. Every performance was just terrifying, but there was a kind of exhilaration to it as well.
Yes.
Because I conquered something. There was that something, And then I thought, what was that all about? What was all that fear about? And that's when I got interested in the idea of NLP, because that was, I was looking around for some kind, I was obsessed with trying to find some kind of solution to my issues, to what was going on. I couldn't understand why I could be fine one day and then terrified the next. I couldn't understand that.
Wow.
And I wanted to find out. And that's what led me into, I discovered this extraordinary book in a place called Watkins Publishers in the back end of Soho. And it's a kind of mystical bookshop. So it's a bit Harry Potter. Do you know what I mean? It really was like that. And I found this book and it just opened up on a page, and the page said, "The Miracle Question." And then it said, if you could go to sleep tonight and you could wake up the next morning and everything in your life would be exactly the way that you wanted it to be, what would it look like? What would it sound like? And what would it feel like?
Wow.
And it just opened my mind to the possibility that I could even dream in a way that possibility became possible, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's beautiful. And yet again, one simple twist of fate and you know, getting on the stage and doing your thing, it led, you know, somewhere, and it's beautiful. And so there's a couple things that I wanted to pick up on here, and I'm sitting here, there's so many good places to go with this, but so you know, in the whole acting world, right? I mean, from an outsider's perspective, I see how harsh critics can be sometimes. So I can only imagine being judged for showing up and doing your thing and acting, right? Even if it is acting, you're being judged for your acting, which is in a way probably a strong part of your identity at that standpoint. So what were some of the things that allowed you to start to ease into this a bit? And I love how you said that it was frightening, but also exhilarating. When I was talking about this on an earlier episode, when I first published my first video online, it was in 2014, and I was scared, you know, SHITLESS. Okay. And what happened is I recorded that video 20 times. Right. And I was just putting it out to people on Facebook who already know me and like me and their things like that. And I was petrified what they thought. And I put so much emphasis on what other people thought that I was unable to be myself. And it zapped my energy. Like I needed to take naps throughout the day just because I was trying to put myself out there. It was a scary deal. So I can only imagine at a grander scale, you putting yourself out there like that and being at the mercy of people judging you. How did you start to see that in order to become?
It's very interesting because actually what happens is you develop a kind of, you have to have a strategy to deal with it, because it is obviously going to happen all the time. And everything you do is going to be seen by other people, particularly if you're doing theater, but it's the same with film and television as well. Everybody writes stuff about it, and some critics get incredibly personal about what it is that they're saying. I developed quite early on, I think, I quite some time back, I started to realize that I didn't like what critics were saying. And the reason I didn't like it was not because I was not open to criticism, because that was okay, but it was like when somebody, see, because I used to get good reviews and then I would also get some not so good reviews. And I thought, well, if this guy says, for example, I remember one I had which said, it was such a funny show, and the way that Nick Dunning walked through the door was hilarious. right. And that was what it said. The next night I came back on to do the show. I could barely get through the door. I was so self-conscious.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't do it. And I realized what had happened was I'd taken on board this whole notion that what this person thought about the door and my entrance through it was the epitome of the show.
Wow.
Of course, what it stopped me doing was being an actor, being in the moment and walking through a door. And so, I realized that's, then I suddenly realized, of course, if they say I can walk through it well, they can also say I can walk through it badly. And that can have the same effect.
Yeah, it's like a threshold into the whole thing.
I haven't read a review in years.
Yeah,
just don't read them. Don't read them. And I know you hear actors say, "Oh, nobody, I don't believe," but I really, really do not read them. And then when I've finished a show, if it's a show I particularly love, and if there's, say a critic I particularly respect, then I will certainly look at it. I will, but then I'm not in it. I'm not in the moment. That's fine, But I think it's they're two devils. They're actually either way, they can pull you either way. And if you start to believe that you're great, that can take you out of the play or out of the film or the television show. And if you start to feel you're terrible, that can pull you out.
Yeah.
So it's the idea of trying to stay cleanly focused on one thing, just
Clean.
what
Yeah.
you're doing. Just, it's like, you often talk about, your intention.
Yeah.
And it's actually what your intent. It's a word we use as actors. What's my intention in the scene?
Yeah.
My intention is to, communicate clearly with this person, or my intention is to, have a great night, or my intention is to enjoy the show.
Yeah.
And I think when we put our focus on those intentions of what it is that where we really want to go, we're much more likely to achieve it.
Yeah,
that's certainly my experience.
Yeah, and there's so much, I'm seeing so much synergy here, but between what you do and entrepreneurship. Namely, one of the things that I teach yet again in Heart Center Selling Mastery is powerful presence, and it sounds like that's a cornerstone piece of acting. It's like you cannot be thinking what other people are thinking and how am I going to do this and all this. You must be present in order to really 100%. In order to be effective, right? And so that's
100%.
That's something we work on as well.
Absolutely.
You had mentioned being in the moment and not allowing other people to influence how you show up. And so you still steer clear of that, right? You stay in your center, you stay in your own power. And a mentor of mine, Don Javier, says, if you take on other people's perceptions as your own, that's not perception, that's distortion.
Yeah.
And so many people, I mean, I lived in distortion for the longest time. Like literally I would get ready to do a live video and I would think about one friend that I haven't spoken to in 5 years that's going to say something nasty on my, on my live or whatever. I was taking on what possibly other people could think or what other people had said to me. I mean, and I've ran Facebook ads to where I've had people call me a clown and things like that, It's like, and if I take that on as my own and I'm starting to think that, man, the world's a dangerous place. I don't want to stand up too high and, have people, throwing stones at me and things like that, then that's going to determine how I show up. But if I'm in 100%. My heart, if I'm present, if I'm centered, showing up from there, it doesn't matter because like you said, my intention is in the right place.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the, it happens in my coaching as well all the time. I mean, predominantly with actors, but also, like we were saying earlier, I mean, one of the ripple effects of this kind of coaching is that when you open up to new possibilities, then strange things and new things happen all the time. But one of the big things I talk about with actors particularly is this thing of being in the moment, because there is no such thing as the past. There is no such thing as the future. There is only this moment. And that's our biggest distractor really for actors, particularly for stage actors, but for film as well, is if you are thinking about, I might get a good review for this. And, if I do this well, the director's going to really like me. If you're thinking about that, you're not focused on where it is you're supposed to be, which is connecting with the other person, which is being in the moment. So I find a total connection with that idea. And it's exactly the same as acting, because it's really about it's about good living. In the
100%.
end,
100%.
And I was listening to something the other day. I was talking, if there are things that you don't like doing, one of the things that you can find to actually really, get through those things is by embracing the notion and diving into it wholeheartedly. If you just wholeheartedly go into something you don't like, you'll find you'll lose yourself.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's
like
the best way. I used to hate mowing the lawn, and now I just go, hey, go mow the lawn, man. Get me out of the give me the lawnmower.
I do that with the dishes.
I'm ready to do it, and it really, really makes a difference. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So would you say, going back to the conversation of acting versus, let's even say presenting, all right? Like let's say you're doing a master class or something, you're doing a training, you're not necessarily acting. But there is, I believe that the common factor here is that moment of presence and the intention, right? So it's just like when you're acting, you have an intention of the character and the energy and what are, you're trying to get a laugh here or not even trying. It's just like, is that the intention? Yeah. Versus what's the intention of the presentation? Is it to inspire and to get them to a standpoint to where they're seeing new possibilities for themselves? So talk me through the differences there of acting versus presenting, and also the similarities, if you would.
I think there's more and more similarities than I ever imagined, actually. The whole notion of being in the moment and literally connecting with the people. That's the biggest thing. That's what I've learned most from heart-centered selling, was this whole notion of just connecting with the people, you know, helping people, being present with people is just the most important thing. And it's the kind of thing that it's easy to get sort of pulled off into, oh, my career, and what's going to happen to my website, and where's my, you know, what's my Facebook ad doing, and, you know, am I doing okay here? Am I doing well? You know, all of that stuff that happens, it's so easy to pull away from really the purpose of what it is that you're trying to communicate. And I think that whole notion of, you know, am I trying to sell? I've gone from I'm trying to sell something to someone to, which is what my misconception about the whole selling thing came from, you know, all the perceptions we have about, you know, money's evil, it's dark, you know,
salespeople are sleazy, and
yeah, snake oil and all this, and it's bad, and you know, it's you know, rich people are bad, and capitalism is evil, and all this stuff that I wasn't even aware that I was thinking. Which, if you know, when you get clear on that and how you feel about what value is, and what your own values are, and what is important to you, then it's just a conversation. And really, it's just a chat. And, you know, is this the sort of thing that you're interested in? Would you like to do this? I think you need some help with that, and I can help you with that. Would you like me to help you with that? Okay, then here we go. You know, it really, as opposed to being, as I had it in my head before I started working with you, the whole notion of I need to get them, this is that inauthenticity part, I need to get them to do something in order for me to make money.
Yeah,
it's a totally different thinking.
Yeah, there's resistance just in that thought. Yeah,
even in the thought. Absolutely. And I also, I wouldn't like to have that sort of experience. And I remember it because we've all had it.
Yep.
It's really, really not what I want. And I think it is simple in the end. Someone wants to do something with you, or they don't. Yep. It's as simple as that.
Yep. And you're there to hold the space for them and help them the best of your abilities to make an empowered decision. I want that for people. I want people, if they're going to get into something, not because I guilted them in or I pushed them or anything. You know,
exactly.
I never want to push somebody, but sometimes I will lovingly give them a little tap and say, hey, look here. Like, this is something you're possibly not seeing. But at the end of the day, they must be the ones to take that step and that have that empowered moment for themselves. And so I'll do things on a coaching call or a sales call to get people to that line, but I can't drag them across.
No,
we cannot make anybody do anything. We can simply guide them and set them up to make that decision for themselves.
And neither should we. I think it's also, you know, it's kind of, it's morally right as well. It feels authentic when you're having a proper chat with someone. You're respecting them, they're respecting you, and you're having a conversation. And, you know, in the end, someone wants to go, yeah, okay, let's go play. You know, yes, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Was there a challenge for you to stay, you know, getting into the entrepreneur world and showing up and helping people? Did you feel like you needed to carry over the facade of, an established actor, and was there any of that, or was
it? I initially, when I first started, because I thought, okay, I have to be impressive.
Wow. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Nick Dunning. I'm terribly
I'm proper
good at what I do, and you really should invest in me, because and I was thinking, I thought, oh God, actually my wife, just came to me and said, what are you doing? You sound like a complete idiot. It's just, and it was a kind of an old version of stuff I'd received from, and I suddenly realized later that it was just very bad acting as well. Do you know what I mean? It was like, it was performance. It's just, but I think it is like that. I think we all do it, and we can all sense inauthenticity in people.
Yes.
And it's the same for actors, because there will always be, there are actors you love, actors you don't, there's just the way it is. And there's some people that they just break your heart, or they just pull you into their world, and it's just so so real.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known like some of the people that I've been, so lucky to work with have been very much like that. You mentioned Kevin Costner. Is absolutely one of the most generous performers I've ever worked with in my life. He would always be saying, "Yeah, come on into this." If there's a perception that actors are all, they're all egotistical maniacs, and they all want to, we want to, the camera to be on them all the time. Not so, Mr. Costner. No, not at all. He shares the camera and says, "Come on into this." Is what they call a two shot. You might have a shot where it was him and me. He'd bring me in, which means he's incorporating me into his shot. Other stars would say, "I think this is this is just on me."
Wow.
But no, he says, "Come on in. Yeah, come on in."
Wow.
And what he's trying to do is not just make me feel better, but he's trying to make the actual moment, the scene work. And it works better if those two people are in alignment. It's always about alignment. Really, really good film acting is just about that. People being in alignment with themselves and being in alignment with each other until the scenes when they're not.
Yeah.
And in the scenes when they're not, then they're in conflict. Yeah. And then you can let rip, which is great.
Wow. And yet again, I mean, I'm seeing such a beautiful synergy of entrepreneurship too, because when we do put on a front and we're about me, and I early on, that was it. It was like, I need to make money and this is what I'm doing. And I was all about money and money and money. And I mean, I reeked of scarcity. People could sense it in my energy. Right. It's like I was sharing some great stuff. I was providing a tremendous amount of value, but at the end of the day, I was like, I need to make a sell. I need to make a sell. Right. And then I shifted it from that to helping people. And also, like you said, being in alignment with myself and being in union with other people. Cause I really feel like we're in this together and we're here to support each other. So if I'm just about me and my money and my success and my name on the lights and all that stuff, then I'm missing the bigger picture.
I agree. I think that's why I think there is a connection on this, because it really is like that. I mean, the biggest movie stars are just the most lovely people. That in my experience, they really are. They're genuinely lovely people who spend a lot of time with you, working with you, developing relationships over a period of time. It's genuine, it's heartfelt, and then we all say goodbye at the end, because that's the nature of the business.
Yep.
But that's kind of the nature of most businesses, isn't it? Unless you're working in an office, too long.
Yeah. And to hold that intention too, that we could circle around one day. So I'm going to keep this relationship open, and the same with people who don't say yes to you right now. Is keep that door open. Chances are that they'll be back. You'll connect again. So, and I want to go back very quickly to that moment to where it seemed like you were acting off the start. And I want to tie this into something we said earlier, is you in your mind were trying to, it seemed that other people would expect you to be a certain way. So you were putting on to be that certain way. But that was yet again what I said about, perception, thinking from other people's perception. That's actually distortion. So, and there's no way to be in full alignment when we're always at the mercy of what other people think. I did the exact same thing. I was talking loud at people, and I was talking, I was talking fast and literally like looking back at some of my old videos. I mean, I couldn't stand the energy, because I was trying to convince people, I got it figured out. You should follow me. I know what I'm doing, type of deal.
That's me too.
And I was pushing people away. That's all I was doing, is pushing people away. But when I open my heart and stand for my value, like you said earlier as well, and open the energy, open the door to allow other people in, people started wanting to work with me. It was
absolutely same here. And I think when my first videos, when I was trying to sort of say, okay, come along and see the stuff about acting that I do, I was watching Brendan Burchard, who was the only person I knew in that. I didn't know him, but I mean, I followed him, and I found him an incredibly persuasive character. But I sort of started to sort of try and be a bit like him. And he's not like me. We are just not the same. We're just not.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's kind of that was certainly underneath it, was this sense of I kind of wanting to be successful, wanting this to work, and pushing it. And I think whenever you find yourself, I think it's the same with acting. Whenever you find yourself pushing, it's like whenever you're pushing, not being, you're not really there. You're not present. You're just not present.
Whenever you're pushing and not being,
yeah,
you're not really there. You're not present.
Well, because it's all unless it's the difficulty with acting is sometimes you are playing characters who are unaware of the fact that they are pushing people away.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. So that's the kind of the distinction, I suppose, that is different, is that you may play people who are inauthentically misaligned.
Yes.
A lot of characters that I've played have been like that. They're kind of, devious manipulators and, kind of wizards and lawyers and, people who are deliberately trying to upset or provoke or trip up someone. That, again, that's coming back to intention, what the intention is. So when you're intending to do that, as long as you're doing it consciously as an actor, you're absolutely fine. But when it becomes about, when you're trying to, if you're selling something, or if you're trying to, make a video or a documentary or something about, a product, in my experience, is the more open-hearted and less stuff there is on it, the better it is. The more open-hearted, the more people sense you. Yeah. And I've found that to be the case, is that, when I just do sort of a chat with, say, I'll give you an example. I did a sort of some free coaching over the lockdown, because I thought, actors were having a terrible time of it. And in Ireland and in the UK, all theatres shut down, all television shut down. It was a nightmare at the beginning. So I started doing a lot of free coaching just to help people to handle it. I used to give out these kind of like what were they called? Sort of MP3s to help people, relax and handle things and whatever. And then that's where I started to find a real connection with people, because it became very much that I was making this real connection with people, and there was, it was all free. There was nothing, there was nothing involved in terms, nothing financial at all. And out of that, when I finished that, people were so grateful. They gave me so much, some lovely chats, and thanks for that. We loved it. Thanks for being there for us, looking after it, all that. And then I think probably 20 of them all signed up for Activate, which is my course that I did later. They all joined in.
Wow.
And it really taught me that it's that connection that you make, heart to heart, human to human, that is the most important thing.
Wow.
And you talk about that all the time. The time. Yeah. And that's what I've enjoyed so much about HCS, is because it keeps that conversation present all the time.
Wow.
And that's ethically very important to me. It's very important to my integrity. It's very important to my beliefs about myself, about the way I want to serve and help people. Yeah, it's really that's why I like it.
Yeah, and I trust the listeners are getting it. And this is yet again a big aha moment. Being how long have you been being an entrepreneur? I would say, as in kind of like online stuff. Yeah.
Where are we now? Oh, probably about 8-9 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
But I started up ages ago, just doing bits and pieces, where I just did it because predominantly I was, as I still do. I mean, I'm mainly act still, but because of lockdown, I've been able to spend much more time because there's been much less filming going on.
Yeah, got it.
Much less theater.
What I was going to call attention to. Yeah, sorry about that. What I was going to call attention to is just this, yet again, just the small, subtle shift of you doing something with an open heart to genuinely help people.
Yeah.
And also the whole modeling conversation too. It's like, we see mentors, doing these launches and they're doing certain things, and we get the idea. It's like, oh, you do this so people will buy. Yeah. So if you had the mentality, and I could tell it wasn't really even in your awareness, it was just like, I want to serve. I want to help these people. Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't, hey, look, I'm going to do this free training so that way then I can have this offer and then I can do this thing. It was just like at the forefront of it, I want to serve. I want to help people.
Yes,
and people feel that. People sense that. People get that.
I think that's true. I agree with you. Yeah.
And if you're creating the training from a standpoint of I'm going to sell them something, that energy is all over it. Yeah. But if you create that training from an open heart, a place of heart-centered selling, if you will, they're going to feel that. They're going to get a sense for who you are, and they're naturally going to want to work closer with you. So that's the intention point right there. Yeah,
absolutely. And I also, I think it's like when you watch those, infomercials, when you watch that, they're selling a product. Right, they're selling a product. It's very different when and if you get this, you get 3 of these and a bunch of steak knives, and if you get 75 steak knives, we'll give you 4,000 steak knives, and then you'll be able to move to the moon for $35. And this whole thing, you kind of go, okay. They're just trying to cut through the noise. They're just trying to sell you the bed. That's the thing. But with people, it's a different thing. Yeah, in my experience, and if you're trying to engage people in terms of, as I do, about, issues to do with confidence, to do with public speaking, to do with, working in agents and networking and meetings and self-taping and all the stuff that actors have to do. It's all about the human connection, the whole thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful. So tell us, we kind of seeded this early on, so I want to make sure to honor this. When it comes to showing up online, do you have some thoughts and advice of how to, because it's almost unconscious. Like, I didn't know I was talking at people and trying to convince them of things. Yeah. Do you have some advice for how to get out of because people, I guess we do sense it sometimes. We have this imposter syndrome. Who am I to do this? So then when we are trying to do something, we have this whole different energy. So around the whole imposter syndrome of who am I to do this? Do you have any advice or thoughts?
I do. But the first thing is I really don't believe in the imposter syndrome. I think, I know, I'm not saying it's not real, because I've certainly felt it myself. Absolutely. I know that it's there and I know it exists. But for me, the imposter syndrome is really just a lot of thinking that's going on.
Wow. Yeah.
That we're talking about, I'm not sure if I could do this. I don't know if I can do this. Have I got enough qualification? I used to have that, I'm not qualified enough. I have to, you have to have, I don't have letters after my name, how can I possibly start to talk, and actually it's just completely not necessary. But all of that is thinking. It's all about thinking. And that whenever the thoughts settle, I was talking I had a client yesterday, and we were talking about this, I call it like a snow globe. If you take a snow globe and, if you see a snow globe and you shake it up, that's what it's like, when you're watching. That's how I used to feel, definitely, before I used to do any kind of performing or acting or shooting a video or anything. And I realized that after a while, if you let this all stop and just let it slow down, just let the thinking slow down, what happens is that you start to settle. And when you settle like the snow globe, you sort of sit down more into your saddle, if you like, and you feel more rooted. And so that's one thing, is I always do that kind of thing. And I also love this thing of breathing is so important. Slowing your breathing down, getting into the belly breathing, as opposed to getting up into the chest. Bringing your breathing down into your belly is a really great place to go. And centering. And it's very much that thing. I do it before shows. I do it before cameras. All the time. I get myself into the right state. And I was so encouraged when I noticed that you did that too. Yeah. You just got to get there. It's a place where you can be from, where you can serve from, where you can connect more. And also another thing I use is peripheral vision, which I'm sure you've come across, which is super useful for getting into an expanded state. And if you go into an expanded state of expanded awareness, and you start to go into peripheral vision, so you can almost see behind you, then literally what happens is your whole body starts to just relax. And so that's so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's a really, it's they even the SAS do this, the police driving instructors do that, whenever they're doing speed driving. Apparently it originally came from China, and it was those who used to guards that used to support the emperor, and there was something that only they knew, the elite squad knew. And now of course it's now coming out, and it's very much part of it. It's an NLP thing, and it's everywhere. I mean, it's in yoga and everything.
Yeah.
But it's a really powerful thing. So peripheral vision is a super powerful way to get really relaxed quickly.
Yeah. So getting relaxed and get out of the thinking. And I think this is kind of cool too. And I was just thinking about this. So I probably started meditating, I don't know, like probably 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was very diligent about it off the start. And I mean, talk about settling the snow globe. There was a lot of settling that needed to be done early on. But I really feel like being able to be silent in my mind. And I recorded some podcast episodes last night. I was not thinking, right? It wasn't, oh, I shouldn't have said that. There was no chatter. There were thoughts that were coming in, but they were higher level thoughts. It was almost like my essence yet again was working through me. My heart was opening and the message was coming through me. And so that's where I work from. And I was just thinking, is it the years of meditation that I was doing, or is it just the practice of being quiet in my daily life, but also being in a flow? Like in this conversation, there's not a lot of chatter going on in my head either. There's a couple of things that are coming up that I'm writing down. So do you feel like you were able to get to this point of being more still and centered from your acting, or was it other things that you were doing outside of acting?
I think, do you know what I think it is? I think it's actually a natural human thing. And I think when we focus on, I mean, the peripheral vision is a technique, to help you to get into this state. Meditation helps you to get into this state. But when you're really focused on what the connection is and what your intention is, it automatically happens.
Wow.
That's my actual personal belief.
Yeah.
And it's like, that thing when you're walking along and you just find yourself walking and you're in step with someone and it's just absolutely natural. And you're not doing anything. A lot of the NLP stuff is all about, watching your breathing, watching your rapport. Are you in rapport with someone? Are you, make sure. But actually, if you just do it naturally, if you allow yourself to actually connect, then you automatically go into rapport.
Yeah.
You just do. It just happens.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I even, before I learned anything about NLP, I was doing a lot of this naturally. And then I learned that, this is actually a thing that people teach. So I 100% agree that it is a natural part of us. Yeah. It's just that we've been brought up a certain way, to think a certain way, and to be a certain way. And, we've constantly been told what to do, what not to do, and all this, to where we can't even really tune into ourselves, right? Sure, and so, but when we can start to let go of a lot of the chatter and to slow ourselves down and to calm our energy and center, then it's always there.
Oh, 100%. I mean, one of the things
go ahead.
One of the things I do always, sorry to interrupt, but like one of the things I do where we live, I mean, I live in Ireland, we're not far from the sea, and I went for a swim in the sea this morning. It was like, really cold and just fantastic. But, getting outside, as soon as I walk outside, if I take the dogs for a walk, as soon as I go up a hill, I just go into that place too.
Yeah.
And that place isn't a mystical place. It's not the far pavilions. It's just there. It's there with us all the time. If we just jump into it and just allow it to be, it's powerful. It's much easier.
Yeah. And to go back to your example about the guards who are using the peripheral vision, it's almost like, and you will see that's, if, just for an example, like karate, right? Yeah. People doing karate, they're not thinking like, watch for his right hand, and they're not so focused on that one thing. They're seeing it all. Yeah. And they're allowing the energy to move through them in order to flow with life. Yeah. And so that's what we can do as well. It's like, yes, model, see people that are doing big things and get curious, like, what do they think? What are some of their beliefs? How do they, feel in their body and stuff like that? Get
Yeah.
curious about it, but not so much so that you're trying to recreate somebody else's life, because you'll never get there from here.
You can't do that. I mean, that's also one of the things about acting is you always know that you're in a performance, right? You're never actually, even if you're, you know, look, I mean, it's true. I have certainly had moments where I've completely lost myself on stage or in a film or in television, absolutely, where I'm completely unaware of just the reality of the scene. But I always know I'm acting. I know I'm acting,
Mm-hmm.
and some actors do have problems with that, coming out of it. They do find it
Wow.
difficult. No, they really do,
I
because,
bet.
it's like, because you can convince yourself of anything.
Yeah.
You really can, and there are quite a lot of people in our business who can be a little bit troubled by how close they can get to beginning to believe that they are someone else. Right? There's a big difference between literally being someone else and just, I'm pretending to be someone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a huge difference. And
Wow.
if you psychologically really believe that you've identified with that character so much so that you can't put it down. I was always taught, when, if you've had a bad day, how do you do a show? Well, you leave the bad day at the stage door, so you just let that go.
Put it down.
Yeah, put it down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like a friend of mine used to say, put the bags down.
Put it down.
Put the bags down.
Yep. No more carrying that
You don't
baggage.
need those. You don't need those bags,
Yeah.
Um,
So modeling, yes, but at the end of the
yeah,
day, trust yourself, trust the
yeah,
energy that's moving through you. And
yeah.
a friend of mine, Mel Abraham, which I have on the show as well, said to me at one point, he said, there's nothing you can do online that's going to be just absolutely detrimental, right? So
Yeah.
I was so careful off the start of don't say anything wrong and don't step on any toes and all that stuff, that I wasn't being me.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
I'm just like, just want to help people. It's all I
Yeah.
want to do.
Yeah.
So with that, Nick, thank you so much for all this, man. I mean, this is a very cool conversation, just to see the synergy of it all, and to see that it's really key to be present. And
Yeah.
one of, like I said earlier, one of the foundational pillars in the heart-centered selling mastery is powerful presence. And so we talk a lot about that. So I would love, real quick, just while we have you on here, share with the listeners a little bit, just your experience, if you would, about heart-centered selling, and just kind of how things are going and how things have shifted and evolved for you. And also
Well,
tell us a
yeah.
little bit about your program on the back end of that as well.
Sure. Well, I mean, what really happened to me is that I actually, I remember once, I think when we first started at one point, you said something to me very clearly, very straightforwardly, like, well, I mean, I think you should be doubling your prices. And I was absolutely, I remember this bolt hit me in my stomach, and I went, oh, God, no, he's found me out. That's the one thing I don't want to talk about. Didn't want to do it. And actually, I started, because I've been thinking about it, and that's one of the things that I did do. But oddly enough, I did. Well, first of all, what did I learn? I learned a lot about heart-centered selling. I had the idea that's what we were doing, is coming from the heart to actually sell. That was a huge shift for me in terms of just connecting to myself and to other people in a completely different way. It totally reframed the way I was looking at the business. In fact, I thought, oh yeah, actually, this is a good thing I'm doing. I'm really doing something that's powerful, it's beneficial, and it's going to help people. And if someone doesn't want to do it, that's fine. That's okay. Whereas at first I used to struggle with that. Oh, I got an unsubscribe. Oh, yeah, no, that's okay. Someone else is on a different place in a different part of their journey. Is that? I love the group element. I love the fact that we all get together and talk about it every week. And I get so into the other people's what they're doing, where they're traveling. There's, Kai doing his amazing kind of tea ceremonies.
Yeah.
And Alexis doing extraordinary thing. I mean, it's just fabulous. Everybody, and Helenita, Manuel, everybody. you know, Mary Lou, everybody. It's just wonderful watching their journey and evolving. And I didn't realize that I was going to learn so much just from watching them and seeing them grow and just enjoying hearing people talking, because you get these different perspectives on everything. So I found that incredibly useful. I've also found the structure very helpful, because what I've learned so much about, you know, the way that you can put a sales call together, which I don't even really call them sales calls now. They're more like, it's like a chit chat. You know, if someone wants to kind of, you know, have a chat with me and we can talk about working together at the end, that's it. If they want to, yeah. And if they don't, it's fine. You know, it's really good. But doubling my prices blew me completely. And I've literally, I mean, I was talking to my wife this morning in the Irish Sea, saying that I think, I was talking about this, I think like out of say 10 people prior to doing your course, I was probably getting 3 people would say yes out of 10. And now I'm getting 6 people say yes out of 10. And now I've doubled, they've gone up, it's doubled the rates now. And it feels good. And it feels good in a way that, because I now feel that I'm honoring my value and what it is that I'm doing and the way I want to sort of be here. But I'm also completely respecting what other people think as well. And I can tell you that I've got better as a coach since I put my prices up. I'm connecting so much deeper. I'm connecting much more with them. I'm so much more invested in people's lives. It's you know, because they're going, yes, they want to work with me. I'm going, well, great. I want to work with you. It's fantastic. Let's do this. And I got this guy, you know, a guy I was working with a couple of weeks ago, and he came, he did his first call, and now he's got 5 episodes of EastEnders, which is a big soap over in the UK, and he's over the moon. But I'm over the moon, you know. It's like it's this thing, and it's just so lovely, and I just really, really enjoy it, and I'm enjoying it enormously. And I think it's fun. I you know, because you keep it fun, you keep it light all the time, and you really do. You believe this stuff. You really do. It's really important to you, and that really comes across. And so I find that it's very infectious, and we also have a lot of fun. Because that's pretty important too. If this was going to be like me as a, you know, po-face, you know, I mean, that ain't going to work. You know, I can't do that. It just doesn't work for me. So I love the fact that we have fun, and I like the fact that we connect, and I just love it. And if anyone out there isn't sure, you know, please call me and I'll tell you, you know, straight, absolutely straight, because I've had a great time doing it. The other thing, so what you can find me, if anyone's interested in what I do, is www.nickdunning.com. It's quite easy to remember because it's my name. That's one of the, you know, clever things I learned.
Keep it simple.
And for us, that's an Adam Kiddoo special. Oh no, I tell you one thing is a real an Adam Kiddoo special was one thing you said is something that you did in a, I think actually it was what it was that made me sign up. When you were talking about the prices or whatever, you know, you're putting out the investment that you put out, and I went, da, 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 and then you said, put a little phrase in at the end saying, totally doable.
Yeah.
I've done that in every single thing since.
Yeah.
And I know that has made a difference just to the sales. Because it's like saying, look, it's not this massive, crazy thing. If you want to work this out, you can. You can work this out, and we can make it work. And you can see.
Yeah, that's cool.
And they go, yeah, I love that.
I love that. And what happens in those moments, most people will say the price, and then there's this awkward tension, and you're thinking, what are they thinking? And they're thinking, oh, you know, whatever about the price. But when you control the narrative and you're saying totally doable, which it is, you know, we're not talking about $1 million right now. We can figure this out. We'll leave that energy there, and they start to see that as well. It's totally doable. So you're leading them. And that's essentially 2 things that I want more than anything out of the heart-centered selling mastery is to lead with heart. You know, people don't want to be sold, but they do need leadership. They do need to be led. And also I want more than anything, because this was my struggle for the longest time, is for those who get in the heart-centered selling mastery program to claim and own their value, their worth. because
Yeah.
the work we're doing, no matter what we're doing, if we're, training pets to do certain things, or if we're, cooking
Yeah.
or what,
Yeah.
I mean, anything, we're changing lives. So we
Absolutely.
must honor that. And it is, if we are standing behind our offer, our pricing in a way that elevates us, others
Yeah.
will elevate as well. So no
Yeah.
more giving stuff away for those of you who
No,
give
absolutely.
stuff
And it
away.
really is a ripple effect. It really does have a ripple effect on other people. It affects me. It affects my relationship with my wife, with the kids. It affects me when I go outside. I take that value with me, and I'm connecting to different people.
Mm,
And I know I'm literally going out and meeting people now in a different way.
very cool.
It's just so cool.
Very cool. I love it. Thank you
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much for sharing that a little bit. And I do
yeah.
my best to stay here and just be centered in that, because
Yeah,
even myself, sometimes it's hard to receive, So I mean,
sure.
that's a story
Well,
in
you
itself,
should.
but thank you so much for sharing all that.
No,
So
absolute
tell us a
pleasure.
little bit, yeah, just real quick, about where people can catch up with you. Are you doing, are you on Instagram or anything, or
Yeah,
tell us
I'm
a
on
little bit about
Instagram.
your Activate program too, just to go ahead in
Yeah.
case there are any
Well,
actors or
yeah,
anybody that's
Activate
interested. Yeah.
is what I do is it's an 8-week program. It's a radical kind of training program for actors, and it's really what I suppose I kind of say. I help actors create self tapes that get them acting work. Really, it's how to get a quick and easy yes. That's what I'm looking for. And it very much ties in with what we're talking about. It's all about, because I found this to be the same thing. I'm very fortunate at the moment that a lot of the self tapes that I work on get me a yes.
Yeah.
And so what I've tried to do is to bottle that really and to distill it so that I can share that with other people. And so what I do is as an 8-week training program to get all the thoughts and the beliefs and the limiting beliefs and the stuff that we tell ourselves that gets in the way. I get that out of the way, and we do it in a way together, so that we as a group we kind of shift this stuff, and then all the fear just drops off, and people stop being frightened of the cameras. They stop the fear of microphones, and they start to enjoy themselves and stretch themselves. And we also work on self-tapes. We do 10 self-tapes as well in different genres. So, one was great for me. I loved it. One week we do Marvel comics, then we do period drama. You might do Downton Abbey. Then we do, soaps, and then we do medical, then we do crime, then we do, thriller, and then
Wow.
horror. And it's just fantastic because it's like a whole movie, that we do all the time. And we kind of like, I work with the people, and we kind of make these self-tapes just the best they can possibly be. And it's like, I call it a nudge by nudge. Each week is a different, we nudge towards more and more authenticity, more and more success. And the actors are having great time, which is cool.
Yeah.
Other thing, people might be interested. I've just got a tweet yesterday. I've got a film out in America at the moment. Actually, is on Hallmark. It's called what's it called? As Luck Would Have It, I think is coming out.
Nice.
I also did this thing for Disney as well, which is coming out next year, called Epic, with Sarah Hyland. Do you know Sarah Hyland? She's just amazing. She plays my daughter in it. Sarah Hyland from Modern Family?
I do.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a great time shooting that over here in Ireland. That was amazing.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I didn't know that. Very cool.
Yeah,
Definitely be keeping an eye out for those. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. This was a very, very cool episode. And I love how what you're doing, and yet again, the acting world and the entrepreneurship world. I mean, it all comes down to that heart-centered presence and the intention of helping people and making this moment the best moment, and not so attached to what other people are thinking and saying and all that stuff, and just being, right. So powerful stuff we covered here. So this was beautiful.
Oh, well, absolute pleasure. And I've so enjoyed working with you, and I'm so glad we're not finished.
Yes, me too. Let's keep it going. Let's keep the good stuff going. We got more lives to change, more people to help. So
absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nick. And you guys, if you haven't had a chance yet, I would love it from the bottom of my heart if you would leave a rating and review on iTunes. So that way more people can hear the podcast and the message can spread. So that way we can help more people to see what they're not seeing, to do what they're not doing, to be who they're not being. Because the world needs more leaders now more than ever. So thank you guys so much for listening in to the Adam Kiddoo podcast. And thanks again, Nick. We'll talk to you guys soon.
My pleasure. Take care, man. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Adam Kiddoo podcast. If you would, take a moment to subscribe and click the bell icon so that way you get notified when future episodes air. Now, here's the thing. If you are looking for the show notes, you can find a link to those below. If you're looking for the handles of the guests that I've been interviewing, things of that nature, you'll find that here. And if there's anything else that stood out to you in the episode, or if there's anything I can do for you, please leave a comment below, or for sure message me on Instagram if you'd like, as I'm always looking to hear what's working well for you and what caught your interest about the Adam Kiddoo podcast. So, time to go, time to change the world, time to help more people. Are you ready? Let's go do this thing. The world needs more leaders. So thanks again for listening to the Adam Kiddoo podcast.